What's up, everybody? Today we're going to do something that I am super excited for. I've been both excited and kind of nervous to make these videos. We're going to look back at some videos that I made way back in the end of April when the announcement of rotation was made by WizKids. I made a bunch of videos talking about the top 10 like ramp and churn cards, win conditions, that sort of thing. We're going to take a look back and see how well I guessed how things were going to turn out in both the semi-competitive and competitive scenes. It could be good, it could be bad, but no matter what, it's going to be pretty fun, so let's take a look. All right, we're going to talk about the top 10 ramp and churn cards that have existed in the past meta that we've been in thus far, both semi-competitively and competitively. So we'll talk about how well or poorly I did to rank these and see if we can re-rank them to create a better ranking that is more reflective of what we've actually seen over the past 5-6 months.
What's up again, everybody? With the recent rotation announcement still fresh on our minds, let's take a look at some of the most powerful ramp and churn options open to us in the coming new meta. I'm going to rank these based on power level and flexibility, as well as if they will pan out favorably in the coming meta with the cards that we have left. Keep in mind this video is going up before any major spoilers from the upcoming sets, so if there's a really powerful ramp or churn option in an upcoming set, it will not be found on this list. Let's get started. At number 10, we have Tabaxi Rogue. I'm putting Tabaxi Rogue on here not because I think it's a very strong ramp option, but because it acts as both a ramp option and a ramp deterrent. Tabaxi Rogue could see some play if some of the already popular draw and prep or draw and roll ramp options make their way onto top tier teams. If so, then Tabaxi Rogue packs a decent 1-2 punch of giving you a draw and prep global, as well as free damage if your opponent is running a big.
Pause right there. So this card is a weird pick on ramp and churn options, but it does make some sense when it comes to control cards. I put it on there because I love this card and I didn't make one of the other lists. This card is seeing some decent play right now in the semi-competitive or casual scene. It could make it onto teams as a win condition alongside of Instant War and other things that pull dice, and it is a ramp deterrent because it does make your opponent, think about whether or not they want to play their ramp, because most ramp in the current meta is draw and roll or draw and prep, as I said. So this card makes a lot of sense, but I just put it on there way back in April because I like it so much. So we'll just keep going.
Ramp engine. Number 9 is Hush. I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of Hush ramp. The fact that you need to purchase and field 2 characters just to trigger a die prep makes it so painfully slow, but there are some upsides. If you're running a villain team and you have a flippable bat character that can change into a villain when the time is right, then you can make use of the 4-2 topside on Hush and push some damage. The meta after rotation looks fairly slow as of right now, and villains are definitely in, so this one makes the cut. And
fairly slow, that's an interesting statement. The meta looks fairly slow. If we were talking about the semi-competitive or casual meta, sure, that I could see that, but the meta in super competitive play is never very slow. And that's something I forgot about moving into this new meta. I kind of expected or hoped maybe that it would slow down and there would be a lot more variety. But unfortunately, that's not how it panned out, as we all know if you've kept up with the super competitive meta. As for Hush, this card doesn't see any play outside of maybe some theme teams or that sort of thing. So it being like 9 or 10 makes a good bit of sense. It's pretty low on the list.
At number 8, we have Pepper Potts. I rank Pepper Potts higher than Hush ramp because you get a more immediate payoff from the ability, you get a body in the field, and you only have to purchase 1 piece in order to get it going. It doesn't do a ton by just giving you 1 die extra to roll, but 5 dice is almost always better than 4, and I don't have to keep buying Hush in order to get a bigger and bigger ramp thing going. That being said, this one's also not very powerful as well, but it makes the list.
Yes, it does make the list, and I've actually played a lot of people casually that play this card, and it's pretty decent. It fits any team you want. It's a 2-drop, and it gives you 1 extra die, and if you don't have that non-sidekick die, or excuse me, if it hits a sidekick die, then who cares? Yeah, it's pretty decent overall. Yeah, so it's a low on the list like it should be, but I have seen it played.
Number 7 is Cosmic Cube. This was almost behind Pepper Potts, but the ability to churn through dice that don't matter to get to the ones that do is just plain stronger than an extra die at the start of your turn. I could see this as a churn option on a heavy attuned team to just get some triggers, though the 3 cost makes it suboptimal for something like super rare Yanti now that rare Cosmic Cube is out. So we shall see how this pans out, but I could see it on an attuned team.
All right, this one's an interesting one. I think this actually made some WKO lists and some Attune team lists, but it ended up getting cut. So this one could move up based on that, but outside of that, I don't see this card ever being played. And I play a lot of casual, semi-competitive games, and just no one goes and grabs this card. Maybe because of the stigma of Cosmic Cube, but maybe not. It might just not be very good in comparison to some other things out there. So in exactly old school Attune before it got tuned up to be really powerful, I think it got played, but outside of that, no dice.
Number 6 is Create Food and Water, also known as Cake. If you've never drawn Create Food and Water on turn 3 in a draft and prepped your entire bag, I suggest you should try it sometime. It's pretty awesome. Honestly, this is pretty good even when you're only prepping 2 to 3 dice. Pulling dice out of your bag to guarantee their roll and reroll on the next turn is strong. We quite often pay 1 shield to draw and prep 1 die with Resurrection, so paying 3 to draw and prep somewhere between 2 and 4 is really good.
Okay, pause. That's if you use the action. What I did not super consider is the amazing, well, I did consider it, but I didn't talk about it, is the amazing global that says pay 1 once per turn, and that's the important thing. Draw a die from your bag, return it to your bag, or add it to your used pile. So this is an amazing bag fixing and churning global, and this card should be way up at the top of the list because of that global. It plays very similarly to the bag fixing global on Resurrection that you would use. Yes, you don't always prep, or you don't prep that die, period. But you can churn a sidekick if you want, or you can churn a non-needed like character die if you want. This card is really good. The fact that you can do it twice, once on your turn, once on your opponent's turn, is also very good. So this one should have been way higher on the list, not because you're buying it, mainly because you're using that bag fixing global, which is very flexible. I didn't play around with it enough to know how flexible it was until maybe the past month, and it's worth it. So this one should be much higher on the list. That was my bad.
Number 5 is Swarm, and specifically Swarm characters with the keyword Swarm. I'm making a distinction between this Swarm ramp and the next card on my list, mainly because this requires the energy investment into multiple dice for your swarming characters. I rank it so highly because now we have 1 to 2 cost Swarmers in Chwinga, as well as the fact that the slower meta opens up the possibility for parademons to become a thing. Uncommon Parademon even acts as a win con on top of a form of ramp. I'm looking forward to messing around with Parademons and Chwinga and seeing if you can get enough damage through just by triggering Parademon's ability to make a team.
You could, in a casual setting, you could totally put that together as a ramp / win con, but no, this didn't really ever see a thing. Swarm in general is just not competitive enough or fast enough. It takes too much investment. Even as a 1 cost, you got to pour a lot into it and then roll for it and all that sort of thing. It's just not one of those things that caught on. But yeah, this one doesn't deserve the 5 spot, definitely.
At number 4, we have Darkside. This is a no-brainer. In fact, some of you are probably wondering why this is number 4 and not higher. Darkside is a very powerful form of ramp. Unless some crazy bag management gets in the way, he essentially draws your entire bag for you every turn. Combine him with the new Professor X Global and you get consistency and having a sidekick to activate the Darkside Swarm, as well as staying power. Now your opponent has to KO the sidekick in the field, as well as the sidekick you can pull from your used pile on their turn. The downsides are that this is a 6 cost that kills your ramp early to set it up. He's a villain, which for a ramp option can be a bit of a detriment with all of the focus looking to turn to anti-villain stuff out there. Still, he's so worth running because of how crazy the ramp is.
Yeah, the ramp is really good off of Darkside. Unfortunately, in the meta that we have been in thus far, super competitively, it was just too slow to put together. You just didn't have a time to drop a 6-drop that was your ramp engine, even though it rolled everything, because you're dead to like burn damage from Yanti, or you're dead to a giant fix-it that just comes in and kills you because it's given overcrush and it's put together really fast, or dragons that take care of the sidekick, stuff like that. It was just not good enough for that high competitive stuff. And it wasn't even something that I really saw played semi-competitively or casually, partly because people don't have the super rare, and partly because I don't think you want to bring this really, really powerful thing if you're playing a nice, fun, casual game, because it is very powerful. It's just not powerful enough to cut into that extremely high-tier super meta stuff. So this one just didn't really find a place in my mind. Now, your experience may be different. You may have seen this card a lot, or played against this card a lot, or played with this card a lot. And that's just kind of where Dice Masters is right now. But as far as what I've seen and what we've seen in the high competitive stuff, it doesn't usually make the cut.
At number 3, we have Heimdall. Yes, HXG edges out Darkside in my mind. Why? Funnily enough, most aggro teams really aren't looking to draw and roll their entire bag each turn. More often than not, they just need to keep their bag low, their rolling dice count high, and the pressure on. Heimdall is a cheap way to do that. This is definitely a skill-intensive ramp option, as one slip up with your bag management means you don't get to use HXG and something like Resurrection together. Still, the low-cost investment is a huge benefit to aggro teams, and while the meta may be slow now, there's always going to be aggro, and I think this fits on aggro lists way better than something like Darkside, which is very heavy and slow to get to.
It also fits on, and where we saw it fit in the hyper meta stuff is on fix-it teams, because you want to be able to buy fix-it early, and so on turn 2 you can pay 1 or 2 of these to load yourself up for turn 3 by fix-it, and that's where this saw play in Nationals and Worlds. It didn't really see play on the Yanti teams because they don't need it, which is kind of sad to say when you have a bunch of 2-drops that are your really powerful win condition. You don't really need ramp. You just need churn at that point. I think this is better than all the things we've seen, except maybe the basic action create food and water global, which is worth considering, and the 3, 2, or 1 slot as well. Yeah, so this card is really good, and going forward I think it sees play as long as the rotation doesn't do something weird where they cut Thor, which they could very well do that. But yeah, this one is worthy of the 3 spot, I think.
All right, at number 2, we have Spot Ramp. This is action-based ramp using the spot and something like Investigation, which is obviously the best option now that Superhero Registration Act, Relaxing have both rotated. Darkside, Heimdall, and the spot are all very close in my mind, but I give the spot the edge in the current meta, the one we're about to go into, because of the scalability of the ramp that it provides. You can invest 5 energy to draw and roll 4 dice every time you hit Investigation. If the spot gets blanked, you still have Investigation as a draw and roll 2. You can pay 8 energy to cycle your bag every time you chain investigations together. That's the equivalent of buying a 2-cost spot and 2 3-cost investigations. Not only that, but because the ramp is incremental, meaning that you can use one investigate, do some stuff with the energy that you have, and then use the other investigate, you can do some great things like roll your bag empty with 1 investigate, use the energy to purchase characters, use another investigate to roll the characters outright, and then field them all on the same turn. On top of that, Attune is still a keyword, and Investigate is an action, so there's some further built-in synergy with Attune, Investigation, and something like the unblockable Yanti. Definitely multifaceted, this one, and why it gets the nod over HXG and Darkside.
Yeah, this is a good pick for a higher spot. Maybe not 2. I would probably put it like 4 now, but it does see a ton of play. I've played with it a ton. I've played a lot of people that have played with it a ton, mostly the casual semi-competitive stuff. This doesn't cut it when it comes to hyper competitive, because you don't need that kind of ramp. And again, that's something that we can now take away from and understand going forward. If there are these hyper competitive, hyper meta competitions, you just don't need to really bring ramp, and you practice with like 1 global that fixes your bag. And that's kind of how it's always been. But the spot portal jumper in semi-competitive and casual stuff is so good. It's so fun too. And now you can combine it with things like the bloat drone global, so that you sacrifice a sidekick and pay a shield rather than rolling investigation or something, and you get to roll 4. Which is really, really good and really fun to play.
All right, in the number 1 spot, we have Mimic. Mimic ramp provides so much. It provides ramp, combo potential, a backup win condition, churn. It's pretty insane how much this can actually do. Mimic is most often paired with a mask energy fixer. In the new meta, this will be Billy Club, which coincidentally is a decent control piece that we'll talk about in another video, and the rare Professor X global that fields a sidekick from used. Using Mimic ramp well means ramping on your turn and ramping on your opponent's turn, all while fielding a board of chump blockers, which thins out your bag. The team building investment is high, as it makes up 3 cards on your team of your 8 total, but the return is huge flexibility. If you need a few points of damage to go through and you can field a Mimic, copy the stats of one of your bigger characters rather than a sidekick and push for lethal. I placed this one first over the spot also because of what the meta could look like. If action-based win cons, ramp, and removal continue to be prevalent in the new meta, and spoiler alert, they do now more than ever, then Common Scarlet Witch will be a staple to most teams to slow those down to a stop. A form of ramp that doesn't get countered by Scarlet Witch means that they're wasting a slot by putting her on her team because it's not teched against you, it's teched against other matchups. Couple that with all of the other benefits I mentioned and you have my reasoning as to why Mimic ramp is currently the most powerful form of ramp going forward into the new meta of modern age. All right, so
Yeah, all of that is correct. All of that is accurate as well. This plays really well in hyper competitive. It plays really well in semi-competitive, and this plays great in casual as well. All of the you could put this on any team ever, and it's super wonderful. This is the #1 ramp. If you're gonna put ramp onto your team, you're putting this on your team. If you're gonna just stick with sort of a bag fixing strategy, then you don't necessarily need this, and you can fill your team up with things that you do need. But if you want ramp and you want to roll a lot of dice, then you're putting Mimic on there. You don't necessarily need Billy Club anymore. I've been playing it without Billy Club for several months now, and it's not that bad not having you know, the sidekick when you don't need it. There are other ways to get around that. This is the best there is, and so this is the #1. All right, so overall, I think that list is pretty accurate to what we've seen in this past meta. The things that were towards the top have generally been towards the top, except for like Create Food and Water, which should have been up there. If I were to reorganize this list, I would do it in this order. I'd do #1, Mimic, because I think it still earns that spot. I would put Create Food and Water at #2 because it is a powerful churn option, and it did have a lot of play in semi-competitive and high competitive stuff. Right behind that, I would do HXG, which is the Heimdall Global. And then right after that, I would put the Spot because it is super prevalent within the semi-competitive scene. Then I put Darkside because Darkside is really powerful, even though it doesn't get played. If you had to put one of these ramp options on a team and you threw out the first 4, Darkside would be #5. #6, I'd actually put Tabaxi Rogue because I have used Tabaxi Global multiple times on Tabaxi WinCon teams, and it comes in handy. So I would put that before I'd put Pepper Potts at #7. At #7 is a good spot for her because I have seen her being played casually, and in draft she's great. Cosmic Cube as well at #8 instead of being, I think it was at #7 before. At 9 I'd put Swarm, and at 10 I'd put Hush Ramp, and those could be interchangeable really. I could go either way with both of those because they do play very similarly. You have to invest a lot into both of those as a form of ramp, and they can be removed as well. So they're kind of on that low bottom tier of ramp. So let me know what you thought of this re-review of this list. Tell me if you would put these in a different order. Put your order in a comment below. Leave a comment below and maybe I'll put your comment in the next video because I think that's pretty cool. We can all talk about these things together. As always, everybody, thanks for watching.